Insanity, depravity, and even dementia are very difficult to figure out in real time, especially when you're watching somebody in the throes of all three. Now, while Donald Trump is claiming that we're at war with Venezuela, has killed 80 people without due process, 80 unknowns in 20 different boats in the Caribbean, allegedly to be an interdiction program against drug cartels in Venezuela, just in the last few hours, he has pardoned by social media, apparently, the former narco-terrorist supporting president of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernandez, who's been serving a 45-year prison sentence based on a conviction in the Southern District of New York federal court, 12-0 by a jury. It was proven that Juan Orlando Hernandez took millions of dollars of bribes from the narco-terrorist, including El Chapo, in return to look the other way for the transport of cocaine, including into the United States. Now, why would Donald Trump, while he's bombing human beings out of existence, even those clinging to the sides of boats and ordering, through Pete Hegseth, ordering a double tap of drone, a missile fired from drone, why would he let this guy out? And there's some interesting connectivity to this person. First of all, there's an election that's about to happen tomorrow in Honduras. Hernandez is part of the right wing of the party. Think of him as the Trump of his day. He is supported by others in the MAGA movement, Honduras edition, including a mayor of Honduras who Donald Trump supports, named Tito Asfora. Tito Asfora is the leading candidate for the right wing of Honduran party. He wants Hernandez out. And Donald Trump, through his pardon attorney, Ed Martin, and through Roger Stone, another deep, dark conspiracy theorist, election denier who went to jail, obviously lobbying on behalf of Hernandez to get out of jail. Donald Trump lets him out of jail and says, "Make Honduras great again," in his new posting. Here's how he actually announced today that he was going to let a narco-terrorist enabling former president go. He wrote, give me a second. He wrote a version of, "Congratulations to Juan Orlando Hernandez. You're being pardoned. Make Honduras great again." Those around the investigation, because think of this. This was a multi-year investigation after it turned out that Hernandez comes from a long line of bribery takers. His brother had also been charged and convicted of bribery. And you know who worked on the investigations when he worked in the Southern District of New York, U.S. Attorney's Office? Emil Bove. Emil Bove, Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer, former number 3 in the Department of Justice, and now on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals. How does he feel about the fact that Mr. Hernandez has just been pardoned? Now, it's not a Biden witch hunt that led to this right-wing bribery accepting narco-terrorist to go to jail for 45 years. He was indicted by a grand jury. He was investigated by an investigation that started during the first Trump administration, spanned the Biden administration, but started with Trump 1 and his original Department of Justice. But it took many years to put this case together through the drug enforcement agencies and through the U.S. Attorney's Office and the CIA and the FBI. Here's what two people close to the case had to say about this. A drug enforcement agent who worked on the investigation spoke anonymously and said the pardon would be lunacy. Mike Vigil, a former chief of the international operations at the Drug Enforcement Administration or Agency, DEA, said that that pardon would imperil the reputation of the United States and its international investigations into drug trafficking. This action would be nothing short of catastrophic and would destroy the credibility of the U.S. in the international community. But why is Donald Trump doing it? He's doing it to influence another country's outcome, the electoral outcome. He wanted Bolsonaro, the Trump of Brazil, to be released and not have to serve a 22-year prison sentence for his Jan 6 moment and trying to overthrow the results of the Brazilian democratic election. And when that failed, he tried to, it has punished Brazil with a 50% tariff because he's trying to influence the election results in places like Brazil. He's now moved on to Honduras. Is there any, do you have any explanation then? Or do you doubt now why MAGA is imploding before our very eyes? Make America great again. They don't want globalism. They don't want internationalism. They don't want Donald Trump interfering with elections overseas or in the Caribbean, Central America, South America. And how is this consistent with Donald Trump's attacks on Venezuela? I wake up this morning to Donald Trump shutting down the airspace over Venezuela. He might start a ground war against Venezuela on drugs. And even that set of policies is completely incoherent and the result of a lunatic who's in the White House. If we're at war with Venezuela, and it is war-torn, and it is run by Tren de Aragua narco-terrorists who have infiltrated the Maduro regime, then why did we kill the refugee and resettlement program for Venezuelans? Why did Trump kill the temporary protective status, the TPS program for Venezuelans, telling them it's safe for them to go home? A home we're about to enter as part of a ground war? As he blows up 20 ships in the Caribbean, 80 people. And to this moment, we don't know who is on there, what they were doing, what cargo they had. It's all sunk now to the ocean floor without due process. So somebody explain to me, you can do it in comments, why we are blowing up fishing boats in the Caribbean while we're letting out of jail another version of Maduro, right? Strongman Maduro running Venezuela, infiltrated by narco-terrorists. That's Hernandez. That's President Hernandez of Honduras, who Donald Trump is letting out today from a 45-year prison sentence. Explain that to the tens of thousands of Americans who put themselves in harm's way every day, working against drug interdiction, drug cartels, the Drug Enforcement Agency, other interagency assets and people who work every day against the drug trade coming into America and the terrorism that goes along with it. He needs to look them in the face and say, well, I just want to make Sunday's outcome come out well for my chosen candidate, Tito Asafora. I can really work with Tito. And this was one of the ways to do it. Now we'll see what happens in Honduras. Brazil certainly rejected Donald Trump's efforts to influence politics and their sovereignty. You know, they just took Bolsonaro, their former president, out of home confinement because they caught him trying to take off his ankle bracelet. And now they're sending him into prison to start the term. Despite Donald Trump going after the judge, going after the prosecutor, right? Diplomatically, economically, financially, the country, penalizing and punishing the country. Didn't work in Brazil. Hasn't really worked in Canada. You know, you've got Mark Carney, you know, elbows up, leading the Maple Midas against Donald Trump and winning, not just surviving, winning. Didn't really work against Brazil. Against Mexico. If Donald Trump's efforts were to try to destabilize the president of Mexico, that has not worked either. She has outwitted him, outmatched him, and Mexico is left primarily alone under the leadership of President Sheinbaum. Question is it going to work in some of these smaller places like Honduras, which at one time had been a supporter of America in its drug interdiction efforts, except we didn't know until the very end that Hernandez, the president, was taking bribes from the drug cartel. And think of the message Donald Trump just sent. Well, if you cozy up with the administration, doesn't matter how heinous your crimes are. Donald Trump, best friends with the Saudi Arabian crown prince, who all in the intelligence community believe is complicit and gave the green light to chop up into little pieces using a saw, using a reporter for the Washington Post named Khashoggi. And Donald Trump's like, look at my buddy. Here's my buddy from Saudi Arabia. Love him. It's complicated, those issues. Complicated? He came in as a human being. He went out in garbage bags. That wasn't very complicated. But this is what Donald Trump does. He is signaling to the rest of the world. I think he's signaling to Maduro that he's going to let him go off and get asylum somewhere, maybe in America. What's the difference between Hernandez and Maduro? Nothing. Except Hernandez had the benefit of having some crazies within the White House whispering in Donald Trump's ear to let him have a pardon. And what an insult to the federal judiciary. What an insult to the judge who sentenced him. What an insult to the jury who convicted him and worked hard to convict him. The agents, the U.S. attorneys that worked on the case. Such an insult. So we're going to continue to follow it here on our Saturday edition of Legal AF. Take a moment, hit the free subscribe button. We're trying to grow 2 communities here before 2026 is over. We're trying to get to 1 million subscribers. We're a little bit sluggish in the last, I think it's the holidays, in new subscribers. It's all free. No paywall, no outside investors. Hit the subscribe button. Then come over to Legal AF Substack and help us do the exact same thing. So until my next report, I'm Michael Popok. I'm Michael Popok, and I got some big news for our audience. Most of you know me as the co-founder of Midas Touch's Legal AF and the Legal AF YouTube channel, or as a 35-year national trial lawyer. Now, building on what we started together on Legal AF, I've launched a new law firm, the Popok Firm, dedicated to obtaining justice through compassionate and zealous legal representation. At the Popok Firm, we are focused on obtaining justice for those who have been injured or damaged by a life-altering event by securing the highest dollar recoveries. I've been tirelessly fighting for justice for the last 35 years, so my own law firm organically building on my Legal AF work just feels right. And I've handpicked a team of top-tier trial fighters and settlement experts throughout all 50 states known as big auto injury attorneys who have the know-how to beat heartless insurance companies, corporations, government entities, and their attorneys. Big Auto's attorneys working with my firm are rock stars in their respective states and collectively responsible for billions of dollars in recoveries. So if you or a loved one have been on the wrong side of a catastrophic auto, motor vehicle, rideshare, or truck accident, suffered a personal injury, or been the victim of medical malpractice, employment harassment or discrimination, or suffered a violation of your civil and constitutional rights, then contact the Popok Firm today at 1-877-POPOK-AF or by visiting my website at www.thepopokfirm.com and fill out a free case evaluation form. And if we determine that you have a case and you sign with us, we don't get paid unless you do. The Popok Firm, fighting for your justice every step of the way.